Hello, friend. Welcome back. Here we are going to discuss profile. And really, the profile is the costume that our purpose is cloaked within. Or cloaked with. The profile becomes a role that we are playing, a role, R-O-L-E. And this role presents itself around our purpose. Now we are going to get into purpose, the incarnation cross, in another module. However, we need to begin here so that you can understand the role aspect of this profile. Now, there is this overarching energy, which is your type. So let's go back and review a little bit. As a generator or manifesting generator, that type is a builder. The manifestors, that type is an innovator. So again, way bird's eye view of the energy or that larger role that we're here to play. Then we have our evaluators our reflectors that are evaluators, and our projectors that are advisors. So we have these four overarching larger aspects of a role: builder, innovator, evaluator, advisor. Then we come down to our profile. And our profile is found within the sun, earth, of the personality and the design. You will notice that both of your line values of both the sun and the earth and of both the personality and the design are going to either, they're going to have the exact same line value. So for me, it's a 1 and then a 3. Now, we are nothing but a role. The profile is a binary process of an internalizing role and an externalizing role. So the profile is always a signpost. The more you resonate to your profile, the healthier you are. The more successful you are going to be, and the closer you are going to be to yourself. So this is a quote from Ra. So this, we have the type as our overarching role, and then the next level are these role gates. So just briefly, I am a builder. I'm a master manifesting generator. So I'm a builder. That's my overarching, type. And then I am an investigative pioneer or that, investigative martyr. So I am here to investigate, which I do. I am an incessant student and have always indicated right from day one that I was going to be a perpetual student. I never took spares in class or in high school. I never, I very, very, very seldom, I shouldn't say never, but very seldom skipped class. I needed to be there. I was soaking in all this information, and that is who I am. And then I get to experiment with it. I get to test it out. I get to play with it. I get to adapt to whatever I need to adapt to. So the mind is the personality, and the physical vessel that you're walking around in is the design side. Okay, that's overarching, right? So we have this, whatever you are, if you are an advisor, a builder, an innovator, or an evaluator, and then you have this next role. So we're gonna walk through all of these so that you can grasp it at a deeper level. And this role really is what cloaks our purpose. So for me, I am a contagion. I came in on the right angle cross of contagion. That right angle cross of contagion for me is I need to become an authority in whatever it is that I'm going to be a contagion for. So I become an authority and I pioneer, I test it out, I try it so that I can continue to have this solid foundation. So whatever I'm going to be a contagion of, there's a 1-3 profile that is cloaking that contagion as I build and create on this plane and as I manifest. I hope that made complete sense to you guys. So this is something, you have this in your PDF, and it is important to have this information and be able to use this particular graph or chart so that you can understand your role in a better way. Now, there are 8 profiling gates. These 8 profiling gates, if Ra has ever indicated why they were chosen, I don't know. I've never heard it. I have no idea why they were chosen. But basically, they have been chosen to provide us with this binary process that, you know, we internalize and externalize these roles. Okay? So the 10 is our behavior of self. So as my psychology lies here. My psychology lies here and my body lies here. So the psychology piece is this investigator. This is my behavior of self. I recognize this investigator, okay? My physical body is a pioneer. This is also something that I recognize. Now, how do I recognize that? I have tested out thousands of different products for my body. So, you know, I've done the research, I investigate, and then I do a trial and error process. So maybe it is this vitamin or that vitamin or this food or that food. I test all of this out based on response. My, mind investigates and I respond to it. And then I test it out. So I hope you, can grasp that as we walk through just the simplicity of this, and we're going to break this all down. So logical leadership, authority, anarchist. I am an authority. Once my physical mind has investigated, I become an authority, and I do a trial and error process, and then I'm going to be an anarchist. I'm going to break down what doesn't work so that we can build up what does work. How I listen. The 13th gate is the listener. So my mind has empathy, but deep within my physical body, there's a pessimism there. And what that pessimism actually assists me in doing is getting to the deeper understanding of the not self. So when I am coaching clients and walking you guys through there, I am very pessimistic at the stories that are being presented to me. I'm empathetic, however, very pessimistic, because I know by looking at a chart that the surface level story never, ever, ever is really what's happening within those not self centers. So, creative self-expression, it's about timing and creativity, and I always know that there's a price to pay. So all this time that I spend investigating has to be the correct timing. There is a price for me to pay, and usually it's my physical body gets stiff and sore. Because I am sitting, I'm investigating, I am, looking at all this information, but mostly my body becomes a little stiff and sore when I spend too much time doing this. Achieving union, pursuer, pursued. So my mind, the psychology piece is, I don't even want to say seduced because that's what happens over here. But there's this pursuant energy or being pursued. I either pursue information mentally or I am pursued for my mental information. The body has bonds made and bonds broken. So I achieve union by making bonds and breaking bonds. That has been a massive theme in my life. I see that all the time. Nourishment. So the nourishment, self-provider, coveter. So I either provide for myself or I covet others to provide for me. So the psychology piece, I am either a self-provider of my own investigative process or I covet others through my own investigative process. Again, that third line, nourishing, bonds made, bonds broken. And how I see this is I nourish myself a lot with information. And teachers come and go out of my life consistently, all the time. I meet them where they're at, and then I feel like there's this transcendent piece, and I move on. They provide me what I need, and I move on. One thing has been the most amazing for me is that Ra and the depth of his wisdom. It's like I'm 7.5, walking into my eighth year of working with his information, and I'm still there. Now, so many teachers, I meet them, and sometimes it's one sentence that I need from them. And sometimes I pay greatly for that. There's always a price. There's always a price for me. And then bonds are broken, and I move on. So the 6 and the 50, we're going to talk about this. This really is a completely different nuance here, and again we're gonna chat about it. But the 6, this friction and conflict on the emotional plane, it's about weakness and strength. Who is weak? Who is not? Is my mind weak or is my mind strong? Who is weak on the mental plane and who has some strength on the mental plane? And then for the body piece, it's about allegiance or rejection. I either will have an allegiance with somebody, bonds made, or a rejection, bonds broken. And same with me. They will do the same with me. People will also, they will have an allegiance with me or they will reject me. And that's again been my whole entire life. So the 50, these values, again, the weakness and strength on the mental plane. This is really important as a first line on the personality side of this. This weakness and strength really is this intuitive understanding that I have of people. And then the third line is partnership and dependency. So again, that is there partnerships? Is in the bonds made? Are there allegiances and partnerships? When bonds are broken, there's rejection, and there can be a dependency, which then leads to rejection, which then leads to a bond broken. So I hope I didn't confuse you. Grab whatever line you are, mentally and through the personality side, or personality and through the design side, and just bring this piece of paper with you as we move forward. So personality. Of course, this is what we recognize in ourselves. This is who we think we are on a conscious level. We immediately will identify with this. It is your personality that will identify with that role. If you don't identify with it, you're definitely living out the not self. And most profile assessment tools only look at this aspect. They only look at the mental plane. That's why design is so powerful, because it is operating on the quantum level of science, pulling two aspects together to create an illusion. So the behavior, identity, this behavior of self, this 10. So again, grab that chart from the last page. So who you think you are in terms of behavior. The behavior you identify with. If you don't identify with it, you're living out the not self. Well, I totally identify with being an investigator. like I said, my whole life I've always said I'm going to be a perpetual student, and thank goodness I have had the ability to fund that. My whole entire life. Investigate, investigate, investigate. Whether that be with, fund it with time, fund it with money, whatever it is, I've been able to fund that so that I can be, and I completely identify with this behavior of myself. I'm a full-on investigator. So the projected attitude, this logical leadership. So how others perceive you, or how you would like others to perceive you, if people project this onto you, you know you are on the right path. And authority. That is what my personality is all about, and authority. Because I've done all this investigation, I become this authority. And people will say that when they refer people to me, she is the authority of the human design system. Limited perspective, the listener. Limited perspective is how you see, listen, and remember things. Your point of view or perspective, you pay attention to these situations because that is what you will remember. And mine is about empathy. So as we get deeper into this, something else you guys are going to see is you're going to understand your base, your tone, your color. You're going to be able to have all of these keynotes to build back up into this so that you see this. Now, I am somebody who is here to, my cognition is feeling, and it's also about acceptance. So not only am I meeting people on the mental plane through empathy, I am also meeting them where they are, and I can accept that. Okay? I can accept where they are, and I can feel where they are. My Aspire to role, this is a creative self-expression. The thing you want to get to in your life that allows you the greatest self-expression. And for me, it is timing and creativity. No kidding. Creativity is big for me, and having the timing of that creativity is also a very large aspect of how I then respond. Like, response is the timing. The bonding strategy, achieving union. So how you connect with others, how the personality wants to bond, and how to look for, a job or a business. This is a pursuer or pursued for me. First line. What I notice is this. People will pursue me for my mental authority and my ability to empathize with where they are. Or I pursue others because I have a knowing that I can use their information and investigate it and then meld it into where I am at and where other people are at. The security strategy, this is 27, this is about nourishment. This is how you move towards security and nourishment. And for me, it is self-provider or coveter. How I actually nourish myself the most is being a self-provider. A self-provider of this investigative authority. Pursuing that. And then a coveter, I will covet others as well so that I can pursue and investigate. Make sense? So where are you guys at in this? So the emotional resonance, this friction and conflict. So how you emotionally deal with others, especially when there is a conflict or or friction. For me, it is weakness and strength. And that is big for me. Intuitively, I know when people are weak, and intuitively, I know when they are strong. And what is so apparent to me is when the strength is in the not self. And when the weakness is in the true self. Those are something that I really can feel deeply when people are, you know, with me and interacting with me. So the awareness resonance, values, how you express your underlying awareness and values. This again is weakness and strength. My mind, you know, has this intuitive understanding of weakness and strength. You know, the strength of values, the weakness of values. And also understanding this for myself, where I am weak in my values and where I have strength in my values. So design. Now this is the red. This is the red aspect. It's unconscious. So the personality really, you know, it doesn't really know what's going on, and it's kind of a surprise. So it cannot resolve it with the mind. It is genetics. This is really the genetic piece of it. So we are stuck with this binary. All you can do is create balance and accept it. It is something that operates unconsciously, and there is a thin synthesis that creates something greater. Again, synthesizing. That is what quantum physics does. Brings together two aspects into this, you know, two binaries into this understanding. So the rule, 10th gate, behavior of self. Your nature, or what is going on underneath the surface. So my nature, third line, pioneer, martyr. That's what's going on underneath the surface, adapting. You know, my vessel, my meat suit is always adapting. The unconscious attitude, this is what, you know, the 7 brings, this logical leadership. And how people may see you that you are unaware of. So I'm this anarchist. You know, I never knew this about myself really until I began to see human design. And I can see this at a whole different level. Like literally breaking down barriers, breaking down things, breaking down the old structure to rebuild a new one based off of, you know, the solid foundation my mind has created. The memory, this is the listener, how your body remembers things. And I remember things in a very pessimistic way. So when stories are being told to me, I'm very pessimistic because I know that there are deeper layers to that story. So my body is resonating and saying, listen, you know, it's very pessimistic. It stores that memory in a pessimistic way. The direction. 1, self-expression. Where life will take you unconsciously. So, this is very interesting. There is a price for me to pay. Always. And that price might be, you know, broken bones, as the third line being. That price might be whatever. It might be whatever it needs to be. Bonding strategy. The 59, this is about achieving union. Unconscious strategy for connecting with others. Again, bonds made and bonds broken. Now, this has always happened in my life. People come and go out of my life continuously. It just happens. And it's something that I never really gave thought to. At times, the transference of my mind, of my conditioned mind, takes me into guilt. Again, that's something that you guys are going to learn as we walk down the base, the color, the tone, all of that information underneath the line. But I'd become guilty. It's like, why do I always, you know, lose friends? Well, here it is right here, because I'm built to do that. Bonds made, bonds broken. So humanity and this nourishment, unconscious role in and with humanity. Again, bonds made and bonds broken. You know, I am not around very many people. I am, this 1-3 keeps me very introspective. And those that I need to reach out to so that they can then externalize this message, they're just in my life. I have 4th line beings in my life, and I have 5th line beings in my life that are able to then help me externalize this message. Then the wave resonance, this friction and conflict, this is unconscious emotional resonance. So for me, my emotional resonance is the third line again. So it's allegiance or rejection. So there'll either be an allegiance or a rejection on the, the wave resonance. When people are, we're all moving in this wave. Whether we are emotional or not doesn't matter. We are all living in this wave resonance. And then frequency resonance, this 50, this values, this is the unconscious instinctual resonance. And for me, this is partnership or dependency. And again, being, dependent or having a partnership and equally operating. Again, totally resonate, understand all of this, can see this playing out in my life. Now, can you see these aspects of your role profile play out in your life? Now, what we're going to do is we're going to walk into each one of these role gates so that you can get a deeper nuance to it, understand it deeply, and so that you can blend it all together so that you can see it and understand it. All right, friend, we are going to move into the 50th gate and the 6th gate. So I want you to grasp how deep we're going here. I'm going to take you to a very deep level of these profiling roles so that when we actually get to circuitry and we get to gates and lines and all of that, you guys are actually going to have quite an in-depth understanding of these particular 8 gates. Now I want to take you here, even if you're a newbie, I want you to just drop into the depth of this information, and then we'll pull you out on the other side when we begin to talk about circuitry. So the 50th and the 6th gates, these gates are the form architecture, okay? Now, why do I say that? There are different levels of aura types. Individually, we have an aura type. Then when we get together with another person, one other person, we all of a sudden have this partnership or connection aura that happens. So 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. 1 + 1 actually equals 3 because there's this third aura that's created. Then there's this smaller group. Smaller groups are what we call pentas. And we can put 5 people in a penta. Up to 5 people in a penta. So after 2, 3, 4, and 5 people in a group are what we call pentas. They are smaller groups and they create their own trans-auric energy, trans-auric field. And then when we actually put 3 pentas together plus 1 person, we end up with what we call a WA, or a larger group. And this trans-auric energy is held together with the 6th and the 50th gate, okay? So we're bringing this architecture of the entire group sociology together through these 2 gates. So the 50 sits in the splenic center. The 60 sits in the solar plex center. Now you know that both of those centers are an awareness center. And awareness is where the cognitive potential of humanity is stored. And the goal of these centers is cognition. We are designed to move through the fear, move through the nervousness, move through the anxiety, because awareness is actually built right into those centers. So the splenic center and the solar plex center actually produce our cognitive potential. Okay, they produce it. And then the ajna gets to witness this process. Now, what I'm going to tell you right now is that the mind, the conditioned mind, has no place in this. This is about witnessing. When the ajna gets involved, the awareness of the ajna gets involved, it is a witnessing process. This is about being that observer. So we get to produce the cognitive data in the splenic center and the solar plex. Now, it doesn't matter whether they are defined or undefined in your body graph. Do not get caught up in the conditioned mind trying to figure this all out. Because everything in that rave mandala, in that rave mandala, in that body graph, you have all of that architecture, okay? The architecture is also within you. It is what is activated that provides you with your uniqueness. But we all have a splenic center. We all have a solar plex center. Now, whether they're defined or not doesn't matter. Whether 50th or 6th gate are defined in your body graph or not doesn't matter. This is where the awareness is provided so that we can witness. We're all here to, experience the patterns and the flow of life. We are all here to experience life's movement and life's experiences and discovering ourselves within that experience of life. And then we are all here to become self-reflected consciousness. And it doesn't matter if there's a definition there or not. Our whole process is designed around this. Now, the 50th gate is what we call the guardian, because the 50th gate is the seat of our intelligence, okay? And the seat of our intelligence is the guardian and the maintainer of the body. So in the rule profile gates, as you remember, we went through this. Now, again, you should have that chart, that table in front of you so that you can see how this plays out for you. So for me, first line and third line. How this plays out for me, how the guardian of information, the maintainer of my body, is weakness and strength, partnership and dependency. So our bioforms are vulnerable compared to any other mammal. We have evolved into a being that is designed for conscious evolution. We are not designed to be so caught up in survival that we cannot see what's happening. The binary of the first and second line, there is an instinct built right in. So if you have a profile of a first or second, you have this instinct built right in. You process information instinctively, and you have a relationship to smell. If you have a binary, if you have a third or fourth line in your profile, this is about mutation. It's mutative. And there's intuition. And this intuition is connected to the medium of frequency. It is what we hear. And that should be H-E-A-R, not H-E-R-E, just so that you know. And as I speak, we can change that so that your PDF is correct. So we are here to, that intuition is acoustic. This also includes the third ear. So in the Ajna Center, all too often we say, oh, we have a third eye there. Well, actually, it's the third ear because we are frequency-based beings. Then the binary of the 5 and 6. So if you have a 5 or 6 in your profile, these are the collective logic lines, and there's no abstract here, okay? So 50, remember, this is the spleen. This isn't about abstract. This isn't about experience. This is about survival. There's no abstract when we move through the spleen. It's about hard evidence. It's about, the proven theory or a strategy for staying alive and not a strategy for life. So these 3 strategies keep us safe and surviving. Everything that we use strategically to keep us safe comes from the 50th gate. This is the seat of our intelligence. This is the source of our intelligence. And each binary carries a frequency. Instinct, intuition, taste. Now, why we have the 4 and the 3 kind of separated here is because when we get to tone, you guys are going to understand that we have a splenic binary, we have an ajna binary, and then we have a solar plex binary, because the architecture of the tone is the awareness, because tone is all about cognition. Spleen, ajna, solar plex. The splenic side, it's our basic insecurity. And as bioforms, it is easy for us to be terminated. That's what's really interesting, is that, compared to other mammals, we can easily be terminated. So the potential of the intelligence happens when we are actually correct on the surface. When the vehicle is operating correctly, the more intelligent you become. Your predisposition to differentiate and the relative intelligence is the only thing that gets its way in the mind. Okay? So we are designed to differentiate. So how I read that, I don't know how I read that. Let me read that sentence again. So your predisposition to differentiate and the relative intelligence within that differentiation. The only thing that gets in its way is the mind. Our conditioned mind is always getting in the way of our differentiated intelligence. The mind is never our data source, ever. It's always either the spleen or the solar plex, where we are gaining intelligence on both sides. Intelligence on this side is about strategy to keep us surviving. Intelligence on the other side is emotional intelligence. The head center really is where we store the information, and then the ajna is how we conceptualize. But the mind is actually not the data source. The data source is coming from the interaction in our lives through experience and experimenting. So you got to let the vehicle run the life. The vehicle has to be what is navigating on this plane, because you cannot trust the mind to interpret what it wants to try to figure out. We're not here to figure out anything. We're here to witness things. Okay? The conditioned mind always, 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 always has an agenda, you guys. It wants to run the life, and it wants to grab the fears and absolutely create resistance. So understand that any of our intelligence, both strategically and emotionally, come from the experience and testing theories on the splenic side, and then of course on the emotional intelligence, it's about experiencing, having an experience, having a life experience, trying things out. So now let's look at all of the 6 lines so that you can get this at a really deep level, okay? So the 50, again, what is the 50? It's our values. It's this instinctual value, okay? So whatever you are, if you're first, second, third, fourth, fifth, or sixth line, go along with me here. So for me, I am a 1-3. So, the 1 has an instinct of what is strong and what is weak. This instinct to judge if there is a strength or a weakness in the other or within the circumstance, or within really the theory or the data that we are processing. So it bases the basis of our survival and judges what is strong and what is weak. There is an instinct for strong and weak, always. So if you have a first line anywhere in your profile, know that you will have an instinct for strengths and weaknesses, period. It's just a part of who you are. Now, if you don't recognize this at all, we might want to look at your birth data. And then, if the birth data is definitely correct, you want to be able to then go into the not self, go back to the very first information that I provided as the not self, and see where is it pulling you off track so that you cannot see this strength or weakness in yourself and in others. Second line, there's an instinct for what is determined or not. Are they lagging or are they tired? When you're looking at people, are they tired? What are they determined about? What are they not determined about? To be determined is a gift of the second line. To be determined is an extraordinary gift. Caught up in the hermit natural and determined in its process or not. So the instinct grows out of the strengths and weaknesses and the determination. So I have a second line husband. His determination is, that's who he is. He's either determined or he's not determined, and things will just flow by him. Period. Same with me. As someone who's a 1, who has this ability to see strengths and weaknesses, there are times that I am strong. There are times where I am weak. And I can recognize that in myself, and I can recognize that in others. So the third line. Third lines, again, remember from last module, third lines are mutative. So intuition is mutative. That means it is either there or it is not. Partnership or dependency. And that intuition to tell if the other is good for you or not. Understanding that partnership and dependency is a mirror, and they can get lost in the partnership or dependency, right? There's a mirror there, so we can become codependent or not. That's why we get that name, codependency. Versus having a partnership, or is it a codependency application that happens there? So the trial and error and how the intuition, all third lines have an intuitive continuity. All third lines are intuitive. And what's really, what I'm also going to tell you here right now at this moment, third line in all 64 hexagrams, you're going to learn this when we move forward. Third lines are all about the material plane and how we make money on this planet. So making money, the material plane, is an intuitive process. As long as we are operating correctly. So every line has a potential for intelligence and consciousness. Every single line. When we look at the fourth line, so remember, now we've moved out of the first 3 lines. So remember, the first 2 lines are very introspective. They are, studying. They are a natural. And then the third line tries and experiments and tries things. And then the fourth line is here to now externalize this information. And the fourth line has this intuition of corruption or not. So a higher level of strengths and weaknesses. It is about corruption in a positive sense, where there is a potential to influence someone away from something and the intuition to know how to do that. It is very deeply mutative. That's why these people, if you have a fourth line profile, know that intuitively you have this intuitive knowing how to influence someone away from something. Or how to influence someone towards something. because we want to corrupt people in a positive way. Now, I have the 50.4 just in one of the lines in my body graph, or sorry, in one of the planets, or one of the activations. So corruption, good and bad, I see all the time in this world. It's how I filter strategies, how I filter through my open spleen. So do you see how I'm laying some levels of keynoting here so that you guys can grasp, okay. So if it's open and there's a hanging dormant gate there, that's a filter for me. And that filter then provides me with a way on how I filter the neutrino ocean. So now the fifth line of profiling gates here in the 50, this is about a taste for discipline. So there's a logical, collective, existential survival. There's a taste for discipline or rebellion, to know what patterns need to be removed or not, to change the pattern and advance. The magic of the fifth line, they are the instrument of shattering one pattern and replacing it with another. And when to be disciplined and when to be rebellious. So the fifth line, again, is that messenger. They are that heretic, that messenger, that savior. And they seduce the public. And then what they're going to do is they are going to be disciplined to provide them with that information and the strategy to move forward, or they will be rebellious against the patterns, shatter them, and move forward. Okay? Now, the sixth line of the 50. So there's a taste for leadership or not. The consequences of survival, and survival can never be enough as the future is unknowable. Okay? This is so important, you guys. The future is unknowable. The conditioned mind is constantly trying to figure everything out. We are designed to declutter our minds and witness and become the observer. So the sixth line looks out at the wa. Remember how the 50 and the 6, are kind of holding that individual. They're holding all of these different pentas. They're holding the group together. So it looks out at the wa and the larger group big picture. And it doesn't know if the future will be secure or not. It has no idea because now it's already, moved out of the hexagram. Remember I said that in that last video. So it's about leadership or not. Can I lead you into the unknown or not? Can I be on that transition line and lead you? So anybody that's a 4-6 or has a 6 in their profile, a 6-3, this sixth line is about leadership. And what you'll notice is that your ability to be a leader becomes way more clear after the age of 50. So now I want to move you over to the 6. So the 6 is the gate of the builder. So basically what the 6 does is it is actually building the body out of the intimacy. So the 59-6 is that channel of mating, something you may or may not know. And the 59-6 is all about reproduction and producing more, because that's what the tribe needs. It needs more people in its tribe. So the data that is gathered here is processed in the ajna always. We always gather in the spleen and in the solar plex. So processing feeling of the emotional system, and this isn't about survival. This is about the emotional system, how people feel, what are the feelings. The wave is moving from one aspect of each line. So for example, it's always moving weakness, strength, strength, weakness, weakness, strength, strength, weakness, always moving up and down. So we are dealing with life on this side. This is not about survival strategies. This is about just, sex, fun, food, experiences, having a life. And into the pleasure, They're, pain and pleasure are what is involved in the solar plex, period. We're always moving from pain to pleasure. So even though they move into pleasure, they're going to cry a lot. So, and I say they because I recognize this a lot in people that are defined. Now, you and I, if you're undefined, we also are recognizing and gathering the emotional intelligence of pleasure and pain. So, experience is there to teach you, and then you get to teach others. And then aware through your feelings, and out of feelings grows your depth. So now let's look at the line values here so that we can get this at a deep level. So the first line is always about insecurity, and it is afraid and wants a solid foundation. Always, always, always. So a wave of weakness and strength moves between the two. The mind will take the data and it says they or I or strong or weak. Now you can't trust the mind. You have to trust the feelings. Feelings are the gateway to the expansion of the awareness. So do they feel weak or strong? So if a 1-3, your personality is interested in weakness and strength, how do we strengthen the weak and control the strong? Does that make sense to you? I am a 1-3. So my mind resonates to weakness and strength in people's actual physical bodies. And their physical feelings. Are they weak in that feeling? Or are they strength? They have strength in that feeling. Where are they on the emotional wave? Are they letting the conditioned mind, run the show, or are they standing truthful and having a strength of truth in there? So the second is the wave of advance or withdrawal. They have to pull back and then step forward. Pull back and step forward. To expand the awareness by stepping out and then returning, and each time there's an enrichment in the process. So again, remember, the second line, it's a natural. But they have to withdraw. That's what the hermit has to do. The hermit withdraws so that they can then advance out and enrich their process by being out with others. The third line, this allegiance and rejection, partnership or dependency, is on the splenic sign. So here, do you bond or not? Expand your awareness with nodding with others. That shouldn't say nodding. So you expand your awareness by interacting and experiencing life with others. There's either an allegiance there or a rejection. The fourth, kindness and meanness. These people just are this. They wave between kindness and meanness. So natural for the fourth line that they will live this out. To be influential is the source and experiencing kindness and weakness. I hear a lot of fourth line people use the word kind. Or, oh, they were so mean. But this also happens internally. And this is how you're going to, build up your emotional intelligence. And this is how you can recognize how others' emotional intelligence through this kindness and meanness. Oops. Oh, goodness. Sorry about that. So the fifth line, this selfishness and selflessness, and selfishness. What can be learned in the pleasure and the pain of this binary, the selfishness and the selflessness, is how you learn and expand. And it's okay to be selfish as a fifth line. Like, man, people are projecting on you all the time. And then being selfless in your practical solutions. People get mad when they hear, selfishness. They, don't like that word. Well, if there isn't you, then we're missing a piece of the puzzle. So you need to be selfish and be able to, allow for your body to build out of this wave intelligence, out of this emotional intelligence. So the sixth line is sympathy and apathy. The apathetic moment is nothing wrong with this. Moments of sympathy and moments of apathy. So the potential to take the best of the experience. You need the experience these themes provide to expand the consciousness field. So being apathetic or being sympathetic, it's not about taking away anybody's feelings. It's just recognizing those feelings and making, growth inside of yourself and providing that awareness of that consciousness field. Okay. So that's a high level of the 50 and the 6. When we get to the 50 and the 6, when we are breaking down the circuitry, when we're breaking down the gates, bring this information along with you so that you can see how this, how the line values play out in this as well, okay? So, like the very, very first slide it indicated, we are externalizing and we are internalizing this role, okay? So for the 7th gate, we need to be recognized. This is about this externalization. So this externalization, people will, recognize this in us. And what's really interesting is that the 7 and the 13 are a part of the cross of the Sphinx. And they are also a part of the left angle cross of masks. So a lot of times our faces actually will have this internalization and externalization. So I actually learned this quite a few years ago. It's really about Chinese face reading. That when you say just put a piece of paper up or something so that you can only see one side of your face. And recognize that side of the face, then look at the other side of the face. The two sides of your face actually look different because one's externalizing and one is internalizing. Okay? And these roles actually can be seen on the face. So let's look at the first line. So again, the 7, I am a 1-3. So my first line mind that externalizes is this authoritarian. Okay, it's an authority. Of course, it's always going to be insecure. So as this leadership role, right? The 7 is about this logical leadership forward. So comfortable with the foundation that they have secured and those situations when externalization is correct. I can then become an authoritarian. I can be that authority and lead with authority. So this is my externalization. Okay? Now that second line, drawn into a situation where you are willing to give your authority to someone else. The typical Democrat. And someone will give you the call. They always call you out. That Democrat is, oh, don't bother me. You look after it. You really have to call these people out in order for them to get involved. So, I voted for you. Now go do it. I voted you in. I saw your natural abilities. Go do it. So when the time comes for the lower trigram, the correctness of self tells you when to be social and when not to be social. That's what's really important here. First and second lines. First line, they're so introspective. Second line, so natural, standing behind the curtain. Now it all depends on strategy and then authority as to when that second line is going to be called out. When that authoritarian is designed to take the lead based off of the invitation or the response of the physical body or the initiation. This third line, anarchist, someone bumps into it, the anarchist tears things down. This pattern does not work, and everyone flips out. This is how you externalize only. So transpersonal, need to socially share this transpersonal lines in a transpersonal environment is what we're moving into. But the third line is already how you're handing this off to the fourth line to take to their network. Tearing things down, so that new patterns can be built. That's how you hand it over to these people, and so that they can then see, now we have to do something with this. So leadership, okay, do you recognize this? There's authoritarians, there's Democrats, there's anarchists. This is all externalizing, right? This is all an external role that takes place. So the abdicator, standing alone in an argument, this is where the abdicator will or will not abdicate. 4 out of 5 will not abdicate most of the time. They don't try to influence unless you have the support already, okay? So do not try to influence. If you don't have a network built up, there's nobody to influence. When you abdicate, you're standing back and letting, those other people take the role. But if you have the network, you're designed to influence these people. Okay, you're designed to influence your network only. So you need to have the support. So that fifth line is that general. There's paranoia, there's suspicion. The practical, okay? They're the general. They have all this practical information. Recognition for the invite to be the general, and their people will need them and ask for those services. So you're bringing in all kinds of new people into your life. You're externalizing the message. And the general always has paranoia and suspicion behind it. Very, actually, quite similar to the manifestor energy. There's paranoia and suspicion. Because people are like, they project onto you that you have the practical solution. But if you don't, that's where the paranoia and the suspicion reside. So the sixth line is this administrator, very cool feeling, where you will see enormous effort to externalize in a cool way. Trust and leadership is built right into this line. The dilemma is hypocrisy, right? Not walking the talk. That's the dilemma. So God has been in the first line. So the God, the global orchestrated directories. And I had given you that information at the very, very beginning in the introduction to this whole entire course, so that you know what the global orchestrated directory is. And right now, we are moving from the cross of planning to cross the sleeping phoenix. So it has been in the first line since 1781, and we're moving to the sixth line in 2027. So this speaks to the roof, this externalization off the roof. So again, the sixth line is on that transition line. Always looking out at that transition line. Now I want you to know that the global orchestrated directories do not go from 1 to 6. They actually go from 6 to 1. Because they move in an opposite way than the rest of the transits. So this is externalizing. So I'm a 1-3. On my external face, I'm an authoritarian anarchist. And what's really funny is when I look at the two sides of my face, the right side of my face hangs a little bit lower. So there's this authoritarian, but there's also this anarchist that's there. Then the 13 is internalizing. So this gate takes in the other and recognizes the other, okay? So anchors the whole experiential process in the listening. So first lines relate to everyone and commune with equality, empathy, right? Meeting you where you are, right? That's how first line people do it. They meet you where you are. They're empathetic to your whole entire situation. That's what we're designed to do. The bigot in the second line. This is a barrier system, limiting who will access you. The same person you hand over outer authority to, you may not take them in. So not everyone is of value to you, and only those that can call you are of value to you. Only those that you are receptive to. So this isn't about being racist. No. The 2 has to have this little bit of protective mechanism around it. There's only so many people that when they make the call to the second line will respond to, feel invited, or initiated by. Period. It's not everybody. It's limited. There's a limited access there. And what's so interesting, my husband is a second line being, and I watch this in him. Like, he has barriers, and only so many people are getting in, and that's it. That's it. The third line, taking people in with pessimism, takes the other in pessimistically, can have a doubtfulness to the story. So this is how you take in the other. You don't externalize the pessimism. You verify the legitimacy of what you take in. You're not allowed to think everything is okay. Take in the outside world, the pessimistic, you're pessimistic about life's possibilities. So again, when I'm listening to people's stories, there is a pessimism. I'm totally empathetic, but how I internalize it is this pessimism. Like, I just have this sense that the not self is telling the story and trying to convince me to, honor its bullshit. Excuse my language. And pessimistically, I am very doubtful of all stories because I know that there's a deeper nuance there. It isn't about pointing outwards and blaming other people. And that's mostly how we tell our stories. So there's always this pessimism when I interact with people. That's how I internalize the other person. So then we go to the transpersonal, need to be socially, shared. The transpersonal lines in a transpersonal environment. The fourth line is about fatigue. So fourth line people take others in, and there is fatigue there. So they get tired of people. Everyone is very much alike, and it is tiring. Dealing with a homogenized world and dealing with the recognition of homogenization. They get very tired. The not self is a very powerful dynamic on this planet. And taking in other people's not self stories and all of that can be very fatiguing for a fourth line person. So now when we look at the fifth line, this savior, right? This savior, we've talked about this. Savior finds rules for people, aligning you to your specific role. The savior tries to break the homogenization. Most of the fifth lines are not self, so they are still not aligning you properly. You align us to our directions and takes in the other and aligns them as a general on the externalization. So get that, okay? They're taking people in. People are going, hey, you can be a savior. They're taking people in. They're taking people in. They're taking people in this energy of, savior energy. And then they're going to be a general, and they're going to come out, and they're going to externalize that as a general. So it's like, think about it in terms of the military or the army or Air Force, whatever. Like, there's a general there, because it's like, here is your path to walk. Left, right, left, right, left, right. I'll save you. But you need to lift your feet. You need to move in this direction. That's what a fifth line does. So the sixth line is about optimism. When dealing with the other, if you're a 3-6 or a 6-3, the pessimism and the optimism can feel like schizophrenia, because you go from one to the other. This is off the roof internalizing, meaning can be very optimistic. You internalize and you're optimistic. Versus myself, I'm a third line. When people are talking to me, I am very doubtful. When people are talking to a sixth line, they're very optimistic, right? They want to believe everything that everybody tells them. They're so optimistic about the other person as they internalize it. And they will waffle back between optimism and pessimism, because remember how I had indicated, the first 30 years of a sixth line being, they're actually living a third line life. But they're designed to take it all in and, be, trusting and believing people's stories, and then being that administrator and externalizing. That's how they lead, as administering. So do you see how these things, these rules are so very deep? The gates and the information that you guys are getting here, this is really, really, really high-end information. So the 10th gate. This is about internalization and embodiment. We are embodying, okay? So that first line, investigator. Here, we're here in this internalization here, okay? Investigator. Afraid and fear. The world is built on sand and nothing is solid. So you need to find a solid foundation, establish the foundation, and the externalization will demand it. Good studiers come up with their foundation, but uncertain onto what to do with it and when to do something with it. Now, we pop over to the externalization. Timing will be the byproduct of your correctness. Melancholy comes from a psychological problem. Now, we're going to talk a lot about melancholy when we get to the individual circuitry. However, first lines, this is the internaling embodiment, investigator. Like, I have always, as a first line, embodied the fact that I am here to be a student, period. That has embodiment written all over it for me. The second line, hermit, is the gift here is that there is a special capacity, talent, and the seed is present in the hermit. And the blossoming happens when the correct call comes. So remember, they have bigotry, meaning they had this little protection. Has to be the correct call. So there are specific calls that will be for them in this life. There's a hidden talent there. Third line, this martyr, this resilient and remarkable. It is how the third line operates in this world. Trial and error. Stuff's bumping into us. Dealing with what does not work. We suffer. So easy to condition, this kind of child. Why? Because we make a mistake and we're reprimanded for it instead of being honored for it and saying, hey, thanks for discovering that for us. No, we get reprimanded for it. And I know that because I'm a 1-3. So understanding that there is this great gift to know what doesn't work as they discover it in this, personally, and it is an enormous value to humanity. The mutation and discovery is an extraordinary gift. This thing doesn't work. Don't do this. The anarchist is here to tear down what doesn't work. Now again, why do we go back to the anarchist? We've already seen this in the logical leadership in the seventh gate. This anarchist, this doesn't work. We're gonna tear it down. Suffering because you are punished for your mistakes. You suffer inferiority. The fundamental pessimism that the best is not possible. Again, remember, we have this pessimism built right into a third line. So we doubt that the best is even possible. So when operating correctly, it will not be punished correctly. If not self, it will be punished materially. So the price has to be paid. Remember, we're blending in some keynoting here. So get attention, and this is the price you have to pay for an individual that is quite a price. A deep need to externalize for the benefit of others is the price you pay. As a third line, I pay a ginormous price to be that martyr, to be that trial and error person. And I can guarantee you I shouldn't say guarantee, but I will bet that if you're a third line person, you also know the price of your trial and error process. Sometimes mine is time, sometimes mine is financial. Whoops. So fourth line, this opportunist, right? We're still internalizing. Friendliness, brotherhood, sisterhood, who they know. This is all about the number in their network. It is time intensive. Hard for individuals to network to begin with. So the investment in time to maintain their network, possibly for opportunity, how to externalize and influence. Now remember, they also have fatigue, right? This takes time to build up your network. It's, lunch dates and supper dates and, doing things like that. There's constant touching and being around people. Now, the heretic, those that can call, right? The paranoia and the individuality. There is an uncertainty that leads to more suspicion. What do they want from me? The heretic is always wondering because they are the saviors. They are the practical solution people. They internalize that. And then they get to bring this to us as a general. But the heretic, guess what? They don't provide that to us. They're the first ones out, being hung in the square. We want them to universalize. They are here to go out and touch as many people as possible. The role model, again, this third line process. We have Saturn, and then we have, up until between the Saturn return and the Chiron return, we have on this roof, and then after the Chiron return, we have off the roof. So to be a role model and example for others. There is a pressure there to be that role model and to be visible. And they have to be seen. Hard to come back into the world after you've been on the roof and to be seen. If correct, the strategy and authority, it will be a natural step out to be seen. They have that relationship with the martyr, and they are afraid to step out because they think they need to pay a price. And again, they live their first 30 years as a third line being. Well, guess what? What happened? They were punished for making mistakes. And now they're expected to be this role model and this optimistic role model. And they're here to administer this optimism. And it's like, whoa. They're designed to lead? Well, how do I do that after I've just been punished for 30 years in the first 30 years of my life? These beings are very, very scarred beings. Sixth line people can be very scarred beings because they were not designed to have life bump into them the way it does for a third line being. So now let's look at the externalization piece of this. So the first gate, it's not closed off from the world. It is a medium for bringing mutation into the world. A methodology of how mutation can be brought into the world. So the eighth gate integrates it with the other. So the eighth gate on the other end is what we call the PR person, okay? So the integration cannot transform the other. The possibility to impact with mutation lies here. All individuals live with uncertainty. The collective can be confused and doubtful, but not uncertain. Uncertainty is there until mutation takes place. So the not self will take advantage of the uncertainty to drive you away from your nature. If you don't externalize your true nature, you don't fulfill your nature, your true nature. If not expressing the not self pain and suffering that, is happening in the life, we have to externalize whatever is going on for us. That's how we're designed, because that's our experiences allow us to, sell our goods, to collect resources, to be on this material plane. It's all about our experiences. So externalizing. First line, timing. When you investigate, it is just important as to what you investigate, right? So the when and the what is so important. Timing is everything. Never be in charge of the timing. You want to, will the timing or make the timing or force the timing. Mutation is about timing, always. Being on the leading edge, being that authority and investigating things that nobody else is investigating. But when are you doing it? And how are you doing it? You're designed to do it based off of your strategy and your authority. What has come to you for you to then respond to, feel invited to, be initiated by? So the second line, beauty. Love is light. Ideals and values. And these are the most important themes of a hermit. Has to be great pleasure to externalize. Externalization for a hermit is risky and very uncomfortable. So remember, they have bigotry. There's only one or two particular calls that they're ever going to answer. So there has to be great pleasure in this externalization, because they are taking a risk. As soon as they come out from behind that closed door, they are taking a risk. So there needs to be beauty on the other side in order for them to step out and take that risk. So there's a balance between pleasure and desire. Most hermits are uncomfortable and want to cave back into their environment. So the line of projection that is projected on them, it's called out to your potential. There is no pleasure. No pleasure. It is disturbing to the hermit. If there's no pleasure, it's like very disturbing to the hermit. The pressure to get it out. It is a mutative gift and talent to empower others. Requires the right call. There is no beauty, ideals, or values if it isn't the right call. They get to teach us about beauty. Mutate our appreciation for beauty. Third line, price. Material forces can get in the way. There's an energy for self-expression. The martyr needs to accept, and it doesn't matter how clear their perception, there is a price to be paid for discovery. The not-self martyr pays an enormous price. If correct, the price you pay once you externalize, you are no longer individual. The price you pay is your connection with others. So the not-self martyr will see what is wrong and hold it inside because they just don't want to pay the price. The dilemma of these three gates are not able to externalize easily because, of course, the first, second, and third lines are more so an internal process. Introspective, I guess I should say, than externalization. So the third line has a hard time externalizing. The second line has a hard time externalizing. The first line has a hard time externalizing. But we are designed to do that. And, that third line, just because we made a mistake doesn't mean that we should not externalize that experience. We still should, and we need to, because that's how other people learn, whether we paid a ginormous price or not. So, equipped to externalize and to be transpersonal is the 4 to the 6. So this is a better, they're easier at doing this. So the fourth line, externalization, always brings tension. Aloneness is a medium for creativity. Tension of time to maintain the network. It takes a long time for these fourth line people to maintain their network, and there can be a tension in that because they kind of want to be alone. And yet, they need to be out externalizing and with their network. So, is it worth my while to maintain this? This is so important to understand as a fourth line being. Whatever your type and whatever your strategy and whatever your authority has to tell you what people in your network are worth your time, period. If you're holding on to them and they are not good for you, you're already fatigued. You're already fatigued. Let those people go. If there is, if the relationship is done, let it be done. Don't hold on to them. While the mind is convincing you it is stupid to maintain the network, it is not stupid to maintain those that, you're responding to, those that are inviting you, those that, are ready for your impact, all of that. Those that are ready for your evaluation. It's not stupid. This, the tension that is there is about this aloneness. You want to be alone, and yet you need to externalize and be with people. So the fifth is stamina to externalize. Use the power and drive with what is correct and stay with it. Take on the collective quality of the general. But no one sees the individual process and the stamina to stay with it. So, you have all these practical solutions. All these practical solutions, you're the heretic. People are already suspicious. But you get to stay the course. You're here to externalize it. And you have the stamina to do it. Projector, reflector, manifester, generator, doesn't matter. There's a stamina built right into this line for you to be able to externalize that information. Now the sixth is perspective, this objectivity. Fulfillment of this process is a transcendent aspect. You enter into an environment no one has ever entered into before. The capacity to flower at a much later time. 40 years to gain your footing and another 12 years to gain your knowledge, and then you get to flower. So the role model's relationship with the martyr, most role models think that being seen is a price. Is that a price? And that is so wrong. It's actually the third line being, right? So we need to see these role models. But because for the first 30 years, they felt like they had to pay a price to be seen, their perspective can get skewed. You're designed to be objective. People are designed to, trust you. Now let's move on to the 59th role gate. The 59th role gate, this is about the internalization process. So these are the genetic roles. So the 59 and the 27, this isn't about identity. This is about our genetics. This is about taking and giving. So the mind will chew. It is not about the mind. This is about the vehicles. This is how the genes, want to continue humanity. So not operating correctly, they will backfire on you. The genetic imperative to bond, to reproduce. This is how we take in and the roles we take on to take in the other. You do not take from somebody who is just like you. Okay? Taking in, we are designed to attract the other. So there are genetic strategies and these techniques to get to the other. Really, they can be traps because the not self mind then wants us to grab onto that and become it. We are all designed through our openness to attract the other. There is this genetic imperative for us to bond with people that are not like us, so that we do not have, handicapped children. It just happens that way. The genes want the opposite. And something that coaching over the last, 5.5 years through the human design system, that's what I have seen. When I have couples in here and they're on their second marriage or third or fourth relationship that is serious, the initial relationship is where they have the children. And of course, we are designed to attract what we are not. So we are always attracting the opposite. And because we attract the opposite, so many times the not self gets so involved, the conditioned mind gets so involved that those relationships can never be healed. However, the genetics got what they needed. They got to procreate and not have mutation. But the second, third, or fourth relationship, there are no children. And they actually come together because they have so much in common within the body graphs that the commonality is why they are there. So it's more to have a companion versus a procreative partner. So the 59 and the 27 are about the genetic roles. So the first is penetrator. First line is this penetrator, or the pursuer pursued. So the caveman, cave woman, the introspective and absorbed in the gate process. So they're very absorbed in the process. Always. First lines are always very absorbed in the foundation. So the other end of the channel can bump into them. They have no idea. It's about insecurity of the investigator. They're the watcher, trying to see in their investigation if the other is really for them, examining deeply into the other. Cannot blindly take someone in, and the deep part of them has to do with their investigation. Penetration is important, and from an invisible position, first lines can penetrate you without you even knowing it. You get to they focus in and they penetrate, and this is mostly not known to the other person. And the other keynoting here is that pursuer and pursued. That caveman that comes along and pursues his cave woman and knocks her over the head and drags her back to the cave. So this is the internalizing process. So the 59 of this pursuer and pursued. We will either be pursued or we will pursue based off of the genetic imperative. So the second, this is the loner. So this is the shyness and boldness. So the self-imposed barriers. Specifically, they, pull for those that are right for them. So, there's a specific pull for those that are right for them. Don't bother me, yet there's always someone to break down that barrier, and that is what they are waiting for. The barriers are blocking out the other to let you in, and they take you in completely. The other sees the gift and breaks down the barrier. So this, the loner who has the shyness and boldness, as they internalize the process, they will be shy or they will be bold in their process to continue on the genetic imperative. And there isn't many people that are going to be able to hear, have the call. Right? Not many people are going to make the call and break down those barriers. These people are loners. They are shy. And when they are bold, then that call is correct. The third line, this adventurer, third lines can be adventurous and have this adventurer energy. This is about bonds made and bonds broken. This is an internalizing process as well as, the externalizing process. So carries a burden within the mating sense. They are not interested in taking the person next door. They take someone exotic, goes for the big difference. Different place on the planet or race, bonds made and bonds broken. The mistakes are the gene's favorite gifts. So getting pregnant with a black person if you are white. The genes point to a view and don't care about us. And the passenger has to deal with where and who the genes drag it into. A willingness, or a willing, very different being. So, I'm not saying that, getting pregnant as a black person to a white person, but, those were the kind of things, this third line adventurer, who again, bonds made, bonds broken. Like, there is no, there can be no longevity there. There's this adventurer. I've been with my husband for 28 years, but he wasn't from where I lived. He was from a different place. And, our charts are completely different. There's nothing that is the same in them. One gate, I think. Two gates are the same. Otherwise, everything is completely different. So that adventurism and bonds made, bonds broken, not having to, this isn't about brotherhood, sisterhood. This is about bonds made, bonds broken. So the fourth line, this is this companion. So this confidant or not. Transpersonal, wondering what is at the other end of the channel. They want to have a sexual relationship, and yet the other wants to be your confidant. And then all of a sudden, that line can be crossed. They become your companion, and this is your trap. Okay, or this is their trap. While I'm your friend, I will check you out. This voyeurism to get to the other side of the story. Wait for the opportunity for that deeper physical activity. Take them in as a friend. Without that, there is not going to be any opportunities. So don't make love or do business with a stranger. It has to be a willing companion. There has to be this confidant or not. Fatigue is here, you guys. You're taking people in. It can be very fatiguing. You are investing a lot of time with people as fourth line people. You have to invest because it's this brotherhood, sisterhood, this, soulmate or not, this energy that, they have to be your friend. They must be your friend. And that takes a lot of energy. And I shouldn't have said soulmate or not. I apologize for that. I meant confidant or not. So this fifth line is the seducer, calling out of the intimacy from the other. Interested in seducing those that appear to be different to seduce. This is what raises the juices. Build up this energy, and the better they get at this, they will fulfill their imperative. Gain access to those people into their lives, a willingness to seduce. These are the seductive beings. They have this, practical solutions, this savior energy. They have the stamina. They're bringing us this message. They're very seductive beings. I know lots of these people. And the reason I know lots of these people is because I am a 1-3. So having fifth line beings in my life, it's important for me because I'm not out there sourcing new prospects ever. So fifth line beings bring those new prospects to me. They seduce them into my energy field. The sixth line, so the adventurer stage is what happens for the first 30 years. So they want to take in the different, they have this exotic, relationship, and then it's actually not correct for that sixth line being. That sixth line being wants that soulmate or not. They want that benefactor or dependent. So this is the dreamer, dreaming of the perfect, the incredible soulmate, the ultimate relationship. The dream is a problem because for the first 30 years, they're living out this adventurism. Bonds made, bonds broken, and it just doesn't work. They go up in the roof and they start dreaming. They move farther away from true intimacy until they reach the Chiron and the potential to come off the roof. They can, leave that dream behind and they can discover what is correct. And all of that correctness, they see the beauty and they can bond at a whole different level. So we take in the other for their support. We do not need the other, the essential ingredient to have the other. So that is so important for us. Like our genes do not want to have anything that's the same if we're going to procreate. Now we're going to go to the externalization. Okay, so the first line. This first line externalization. Self-provider or coveter. It also is the selfish. Supposed to be about giving. The foundation of giving is being selfish. Imagine that. So one has to have in order to give. So we have to be selfish, right? We have to be selfish in order to give. So you won't get a lot from these beings if the timing is not correct. Again, remember, first line people are about timing. And you penetrate the other and you pull them in. And then you don't give them anything. Of course, that's the not self. If the first line is operating correctly, they have little to offer to the other. No matter how successful they are at penetrating their relationships, they are not going to last because ultimately they have to transcend the theme. The moment they feel secure and the moment they really have, it is the moment they can give. So first line beings, we are designed to be selfish, introspective. Because without that study, without that investigation, without that solid foundation, we have a sense that we have nothing to give. But when the timing is correct, we've done our investigative process. We become the authority. All of a sudden, we can then be that giver that we need to be. But for the most part, we are self-providers because we are unable to give a lot. So not very often do people give to us. So the second line is the giver. This is the nourisher or the depleter, okay? So there are barriers here. So no one is ready to give you more. That's really important, okay? So number one, the second line is the hermit, right? They are this democrat. They're very selective. They need to be selective on what they listen to, what they hear. And, there has to be a beauty outside of that call. It can't be, nothing, it can't be not beautiful. There's this shyness and boldness. Like, the call has to be correct. They are super selective as to who they let in, who they don't let in. This bigotry, right? So it has to be called out. It isn't generous to everyone. They have barriers, and if you move through that barrier, you will have sustenance. There's a deep generosity in this second line. The nourishment of someone's intelligence, the nourishment of the intellectual growth, the nourishment of their awareness, magical things of the loner that has the barriers. Those that get through are deeply lucky, and there is a great warmth and nourishment from the giver. So the not self, always giving and not, and they don't get any support. And they are depleted in their resources. So, again, this whole nourisher or depleter, people can deplete them easily because they give so much. Once you break down that barrier, there's a lot for these natural beings to provide for us. But they are super, super selective. My husband is this. And again, he's selective, and, this bigotry as to who's letting in and who's not. But once you're in, like, man, oh man, he can give. So the third line is driven, greed, qualities of obsession. If you have a third line being, to that is giving you, if you have a third line being giving to you, they drive you to the best. They go beyond to master and the enormous nurturing force, driving you forward. And no one appreciates hard work, tenacity, and determination better than the third line being, because they understand this at a deep level. They will work for you and give to you in a way that no one else can. So may not give to you a lot materially, but they will give an enormous amount of power. That you are the one that makes things happen, succeed, and rise up, and rise you. And they bring this drive into your life. Not self drives perversion of unhealthy pushing to someone, and can get obsessed to have too much. So the 27. The third line of the 27 is greed. Okay, so I'm a third line being on this higher level. Now, bonds made and bonds broken is how we describe this. Because no different than, the 59. This again is about those genes. And this has nothing to do with romance, okay? This has everything to do with genetic imperative. So as a first, I'm a 1-3, so I'm very selfish. I don't have a whole bunch to give because this is such an introspective process for me. And, I am able to master, and I do have an enormous amount of nurturing to give to those that I have energy and time for. And those that I don't, I can't give that energy away. Does that make sense to you? So the greed part of this is having more than I need so that I can give it. And then it has to be the correct timing. And not always am I able to give unless the timing is absolutely correct. Always bonds made and bonds broken. And here's what's really interesting is the minute that people in my life feel like I am not giving enough, that's usually the end of the relationship. And how I see this play out is what takes place is that there's this expectation versus asking me. When people ask and I respond, totally different. But people demand, or their not self is feeling like they need to take, even though there's already nothing there yet. That's where the bonds are made and the bonds are broken for me. The fourth line, this magnanimous. So the fourth line is so fun. This is benefactor or dependent. So this transpersonal capacity to externalize is the epitome of transpersonal. So there's this grandness of generosity in the fourth line. So no, it's not for everyone. Can be magnanimous to its friends, but not to its network. So those that give it the opportunity, they can ignore those that gave them opportunity, and they will give it to those that have deeply, they deeply influence as friends. That's important, okay? Do you see this? So even though opportunities can be given to the fourth line through their network, it is that, very close-knit network, those real good friends, where they feel they've had the most influence on. That's how these people externalize, their nurturing. In the not self, it feels like a shame, and it gives an impression that they can help you, and if in fact they can ignore you, and you cannot get their support. It's about influencing those they know. More awake beings would have a more generous spirit. The ultimate network includes all of us. The world is it has an incredible lack of generosity and opportunity. So, being the benefactor of this fourth line energy is a beautiful thing. I have lots of fourth lines in my life. But becoming dependent on them, that's when things go awry. The fifth line, this executor, there's an irony here. Underneath the seducer, and this person is ready to take complete responsibility for your life. Isn't that interesting? So we project onto these beings that they are the savior, that they have this stamina, that they can provide us with this message, and they seduce us through their messages. And then what's really important here is that these people, they are the distributor or the hoarder of the energy. So they seduce us in, and they have the ability then to distribute this nourishment or hoard it. So they have the capacity to take charge and look after the needs of others, hence the executor piece. If not operating correctly, they attract suspicion. They want to do it for a reason. So harmony to the giver, not a natural giver that will share the dinner. The executor will make sure you have dinner, but won't feed you from their own plate. They will call in the resources to get access for others to have what they need in support. They will turn on them and say, you should have taken care of it. So again, we project onto these people that they are going to take care of everything for us. And it's like, no, they are here to, make sure that this stuff happens for us, because they're seducing people into that. But it's not about the fifth line taking care of anything for us. They are the executor. They're kind of responsible for the dispersion of the distribution of the nurturing, or they hoard the nurturing. But they are not responsible for how we then, how we internalize their externalization. So the sixth line is this realist who deserves the support. They go through the driven stage and there is no realism. While in the third line, deep realism comes in after they come off the roof. Profound experience later in their lives, special relationships, this realism when correct, who can be supported despite the dream. At the externalized level, the dream disappears. There is a coldness when they go to the roof. So this realism is rooted in strategy and authority. So important. You know, they bring this innate trust with them. They're this objective leader. They're very optimistic. And when, you know, operating correctly, their perspective is this beautiful perspective because they've, you know, lived this tripartite life. So this is how, in the 27, this is how we meet the other. You know, we are here to give to the other. The 27 and the 59. It happens because I am what I am. Nothing to do with the passenger. Okay? So emerge as the aspects, and we must take and give correctly. That's so important that we take and give correctly. You know, receive what we need to. As women, we have a really hard time receiving things. And we are designed to receive and we are designed to give. And you get to play around with this information for yourself and see how are you designed to give, how are you designed to receive. Like for me, it's bonds made and bonds broken. Period. You know? Okay. So what we're going to do now is I am going to just go through each one of the profiles. And I'm not going to go in depth because you guys will have this PDF. You can read this. I feel like what you just got here is a very, very super high level of information. So now you get to then look at it per each one of your profiles. So as a 1-3, you want to look at this. This person is the investigator, authority, the martyr, pioneer. That right angle, personal destiny. So focuses on self-exploration, focus on facing their own personal challenges in life. You do the research and explore and gain new perspectives. So as a 1-3, as this authority discoverer, you are very introspective and love to learn. You learn by trial and error and by making mistakes. You can be pessimistic until your foundation is secure, and you make your foundation secure by intense study and have the core strength to rip down what no longer works for society. Now you can go through each one of these and walk through and see how this all works for you. But again, we've done the high level. So the 1-4 is this right angle cross and the personal destiny again. So the 1 is this investigator authority. The 4 is the opportunist influencer. So again, it is this focus on self-exploration, focus on facing their own personal challenges in life. They do the research and they explore and they gain new perspectives. So this 1-4, you may love to research and study and are always being approached by your friends to share what you've learned. Surprisingly, you hold strong points of view. You need a well-rounded education as a child to have a broad perspective, or you may become too narrow-minded. 2-4 is this hermit natural, the opportunist influencer, that right angle personal destiny. Focuses on self-exploration, focuses on facing their own personal challenges in life. They do the research and they explore and they gain new perspectives. So a 2-4, you can be very private. You may not know your real mission in life. So you are a natural and in an area that interests you and must be called out of your seclusion by your friends and your community. You can become a missionary when called to an interest you love by pursuing it with zeal. The 2-5, this hermit natural, the heretic marketer or messenger. So this right angle personal destiny focuses on self-exploration, focuses on facing their own personal challenges in life. They do the research, explore, and gain new perspectives. Okay? Personal destiny is always, there's this personal movement forward. So the second is a natural, so they're not really doing any research. And the 5 is always out and about with new people. So you are very practical, and your reputation is essential for you to maintain your place in society. You are naturally brilliant in a specific area and prefer seclusion. Because others may have false expectations of you, you are reluctant to engage. However, on occasion, you have a practical solution. You can call yourself out of seclusion, because the 5th line is this projection inward, 2nd line projection outward. So again, all of these here actually relate to the right angle cross and that personal destiny. So the martyr pioneer is the 3rd, the heretic marketer or messenger is the 5th. So you are a great experimenter in life. You are a problem solver with a scientific inclination. You will bump into everything that doesn't work in society and will find practical solutions for it. You may at times feel the need for social isolation to remove yourself from expectations of others. The 3-6, again, right angle, personal destiny. This martyr pioneer is the 3rd line. The role model leader is the 6th line. So again, you have some of the deepest wisdom about trial and error. Now again, remember, for the first 3 years, this was a 3-3. Oh, life was bumping into them like crazy. So you have great wisdom about trial and error process in life. You are mature. As you mature, you become a living example of how to handle the challenges of life. You have an underlying optimism and innocence that allows you to endure life's trials and tribulations. So the 4-6, this opportunist influencer, the role model leader here. Again, we're still in the right angle. We're still in this personal destiny. So you are an objective witness who uses your social skills to teach and influence others. You are the great networker in your immediate community and circle of friends and family. You are seen as friendly and sociable by others. Through observation, you develop good interpersonal skills. Ultimately, you mature into a role model of that you have observed that works through your social environment. Now we're going to move to this juxtaposition. So we have right angle cross people who are here living their personal destiny. Then we have these 4-1 beings, this opportunity or opportunist influencer of this 4 and this investigator authority of this 1. There's this fixed fate. They are a juxtaposition. And what these people do is they are actually a bridge between our right angle cross people who are on this personal destiny and left angle cross people who are on this transpersonal destiny, who like their lives are about karmic energy. Where right angle cross people, it's really about this personal destiny. And these juxtaposition beings, they are the bridges. They are not, it's not a personal or a transpersonal process. This is a bridge. So they bridge between the research and development department and the marketing department. So they are fixed. They are like a train track going in a specific direction. They are less flexible, and if you try to bend them too much, they can get derailed. So for one beings, I don't have many of them in my portfolio of clients. But these people are super fixed. They are designed to be fixed. They are designed to not bend. So they are excellent teachers. It is not your nature to change who you are or what you stand for. You have a very specific and fixed position in your life, and no one can change that. Now we move to the transpersonal. So transpersonal is karmic, okay? They do not fulfill their purpose alone. They need to have people that come into their lives that fulfill their purpose with them. So they have more conscious awareness of others in the world. They are always ready to observe and engage in life, and often feel an unexplained familiarity with certain people and experiences. They are here to get things out into the world. So this is a 5-1, this heretic marketer / messenger is this 5th line. The investigator authority is that 1st line. So you are often seen as a leader, general, or guru. You are a natural leader. Your personal nature is very private, but in times of need or crisis, you are good at finding solutions for organizations, governments, and society as a whole. Others have the expectation that you have the answers, and if you don't deliver a practical solution, you will lose your reputation will suffer. It's not that you lose your reputation, but it will suffer. Oops. So here we have the 5-2. We have the heretic marketer / messenger in the 5. The hermit natural in the 2. Again, transpersonal. They need to have other people to fulfill their, purpose. So you are a natural genius in a particular area and have a leadership potential, but you don't often see it in yourself because of the expectations others place on you. And you may often find yourself retreating into your own private world. You may feel oppressed by these overblown expectations of society. Oh, I put that twice, did I? I guess I did. And now we have the 6-2, which is the role model leader. And the hermit natural, again, transpersonal. So you are here to be a living example of what you have learned in the 3 phases of your life. In the first phase, you experience, great challenges and trials. In the second phase, you withdraw and become an objective observer as to how to deal with these challenges. In the third phase, you walk in the world as a natural living example for what you have learned. And now for our very last one, we have a 6-3. This is the role model leader and the martyr pioneer. Again, transpersonal. You are an external optimist no matter what challenges life bring to you. Although you have 3 phases in life, these challenges, observation, and example, the challenges seem to never end for you. You have an added external element of chaos in your life and are always leaning through experiences. A good sense of humor and the ability to laugh at yourself will make life a whole lot easier. All right, friends, that, was kind of a Cole's Note version at the end. However, you got such deep wisdom at the very beginning of this process. So I want you to, take time to look at your profile, write it out, understand it, get a sense of how you're internalizing, how you're externalizing, so that you can get a better sense of your own overarching role. Now, if you do not at all recognize any of this for yourself, then we need to look at your birth time and be able to decipher your birth time, or it is about paying attention to how the not self is pulling you away from the beauty of this role. All right, friends, I will see you in the next module.